One day were Dashie in Ponyville to see her friend Twilight. They haven't even been able to see each other so often since Twilight was the head mayor of the School of Friendship in Ponyville, and also not only one of the teachers. But now, with summer break, Dashie and Twilight could spend some time together, and when Dashie arrived to Ponyville, she was really grateful to be able to spend time with her friend and also her godmother, Twilight. But during her time there, she had received a message or a letter from Rarity. Rarity had just opened up her new shop in Manhattan, and she really wished that Dashie could come by to see it. And Dashie herself had wanted to spend more time with Twilight, but Twilight had mentioned that since the summer vacation or summer break had just started, so that she can always come back maybe within the next couple of days to spend time with Twilight. So Dashie thought up an idea and accepted the invitation. So she wrote back to Rarity and explaining that she will be in Manhattan within the next 2 days or so. And in the letter that Rarity had sent an invitation, asked if she could even accompany as a chaperone for the CMC, who was also invited since they wanted to see this big city and also at the same time be able to see Rarity's new shop. And Dashie didn't hesitate to say yes in the letter that she could be the chaperone. So over the next 2 days, she and the CMC were getting ready to go to Manhattan. Even though during that time, they were making a lot of plans what they was going to do in the Manhattan or what they want to see. Even though Dashie has most of all just want to spend time with Rarity, to spend time with a friend and maybe go out somewhere, maybe go to someone else's most recent place or maybe something like that. But it was something about her visit to Manhattan that would change a lot in her life. Especially the CMC was really grateful to be able to go to Manhattan, especially for Applebloom. She really wanted to go see her cousin Babs Seed, who was living in Manhattan. She hadn't been able to see her since the last family reunion the last year, and now she has also been getting her own cutie mark. She was really wish that she could go see her cousin a bit more often, but now when she had the opportunity, she didn't hesitate to ask Applejack. And even though Applejack and Granny Smith were a little bit hesitated, but they explained that she, along with CMC, that Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo had already been given permission, and that if she wouldn't be able, wouldn't it be fair? So, but she also explained that Dashie is taking all of them to Manhattan. And and Applebloom explained that she's going to see her cousin Babs Seed and perhaps be able to spend time with her. So eventually, both Applejack and Granny Smith allowed. And a few days later, on the train to Manhattan, everyone was really excited, but especially for Dashie. Because it turns out, not only she's going to spend time with Rarity, but also go on her very first date with Coco Pommel. And since she actually had been a pen pal to Coco for at least a couple of months by this point, and she was really excited being able to go see her for the first time in a while. They had been to see each other a couple of times before, but this was going to be the first time Dashie is going to camp at Manhattan. But on the way there, suddenly Dashie faints on the floor. And even though the others aren't even around, the most of the cart is empty except from Dashie. And suddenly the conductor, Pony, walks in and asks where the chaperone is. When he encounters the CMC in another cart of the train, just talking and looking around. When Apple Bloom explains that, or Sweet Belle explains that their chaperone is in a different cart, they just only walking around, looking around at this train. This conductor explained that maybe it was best to go back to their chaperone. So what did they do? Then Sweetie Belle immediately seized Dashie's tail, and that she was very devastating if something had happened to her. The conductor immediately was stunned, and luckily for the CMC, the conductor was medical trained, and he managed to get her to wake up Dashie. And the main reason why it turns out she was just a little bit excited, a little bit nervous, and she had barely had been eating any the whole morning. So she had been barely getting much sleep also, turns out. So the conductor asked CMC if they could go to the restaurant cart, the wagon, and get something for Dashie to eat, and also something to drink. And of course, it's something that Dashie would appreciate. Soon, after about a few hours, the train arrived to Manhattan. Rarity was waiting for them at the train station. Rarity was really happy to see her younger sister, Sweetie Belle, and when Rarity asked how the train went, even though then when the CMC said that Dashie passed out on the train, Rarity looked concerned, but they all explained because Rarity, they told Rarity that it turns out that Dashie hasn't get much sleep last night and also haven't get much to eat. That was the reason why she passed out. And she had the reason to be eating something on the train. So that at least calmed Rarity down a little bit. So they went straight to the news shop, and there, when Dashie encounters Coco, she wasn't doing anything, just sitting by the cash counter, and she saw Dashie and smiled and said hi to her, and she was really grateful to see her. After that, Rarity and Dashie had a small conversation before, when she said that she is taking all of them out for lunch, and including Coco. So Coco closed down the shop for a few hours during the lunch break, and they went to a small diner in the area. It actually was really grateful. Dashie and Coco decided to sit by their own booth to just have their own conversation, and they decided they wanted to see each other a little bit more often. But there was something that Coco wasn't aware of, that Dashie had passed on the train, but she explained what the reason. Coco were a little bit very scared, but she was at least happy that Dashie was okay. The rest of the day, Rarity gave Coco permission to take a day off to spend time with Dashie. But even though there was something about Dashie and Coco that most of their friends didn't expect it, they were in love with each other so deeply. They had only been on a date first time, but they decided to go to their first date the next day. After all, the cities had just arrived, and they decided to just spend some time. But the next day, Coco was waiting outside the room where Dashie and Rarity and the CMC was staying. Turns out that Dashie had made some plans for their first date. They first went to the park for a picnic, and they had a great time. They made some small jokes and a lot of laughs and just having a great time. Coco listened to all about the things that Dashie told about her, what she was doing, how she'd been doing lately back in Canterlot, about her parents, shooting star and Luna. But there was a lot of things that Coco Pommel loved about Dashie is her personality and her kindness. Not because she is a royalty. She had told Dashie that she doesn't care of title if she's a noble or a farmer or even a royalty. To her, she loves her no matter what she is. Not for any particular title. And that is the reason why Dashie loves Coco. Because she accepts her for no matter what or who she is. Even if she wasn't a princess, even if she was homeless, Coco was still would be with her. After they had a picnic, they used to walk around the town just having a good time. Unfortunately, they couldn't have been going on the date for long, because after they went just passed by this shop, Rarity asked if Coco could actually help her. Turns out they were having a lot more customers, and one of the assistants had called in sick. So Coco was forced to go back to work, and Dashie didn't mind. She said that she will spend the rest of the afternoon by herself, maybe just go to this art museum in the area, and she will drop by later on to see how things was going at the shop. Coco said yes, and she gave her a kiss, and she walked in. Dashie went to this art museum that was not that far from the area, from the shop. It was only like a few blocks away. But there, she actually had a good time. She very much, even though she didn't understand most of the modern art, but she still had a good time. She wished that Coco could have gone with her at this place, but she told her to herself, maybe that she can take her there the next time. After about almost 2 hours looking at the art, she decided maybe it was time for her to go somewhere to get something quickly, some quick bite to eat, maybe a sandwich or something. So she went by this place and managed to find a small diner, and went in there, had a quick bite, and passed by the shop. She went in and saw that Rarity and Coco were in a conversation with one customer, so Dashie snuck by them into the office and waited for them to be finished. After that, Rarity walked by and saw that Dashie was already in the office. She asked how long she has been there. Well, it turns out she has only been there like a few minutes before Rarity walked in. Rarity asked Dashie if she could make her a favor. And Dashie asked what kind of favor. Since it turns out that Babs Seed were working at this main stylist saloon not so far from the hotel, and that CMC wanted to go there to see her. But she wasn't allowing them to go by themselves. This is a big city, unlike Ponyville back home. And their favor was if she could take them to the saloon so they could spend time with their friend. Dashie didn't hesitate to do that. After all, she was actually even thinking of getting new design or hairstyle. So she went to the hotel where she found the CMC on the floor just being bored. But when she asked them what you're up to, Apple Bloom said that nothing much, she's being bored. When Dashie explained, well, how about we go to the saloon to see your cousin Babs Seed? The CMC just suddenly stood up, looking at her with big eyes, and it's like, are you serious? And it turns out when she explained, Rarity was originally taken them there, but now she was busy at the shop. She had asked Dashie for the favor to take them there, and she explained that she was going to take them there. So they went to this small saloon that was only a few blocks away, and also since the CMC knew the reason why they weren't allowed, and since they had never been in Manhattan, and since it is one of the bigger cities in Equestria, it is easy to get lost. Even though Dashie has only been in Manhattan a couple of times, but she knew at least the part of direction where to find this saloon. Even when that Rarity had given her directions, and she explains to her and that she left. They arrived at this small saloon, and therefore actually saw that Batch Seed wasn't actually on working on the saloon. She was surprised to see them there, but she explains that she had a small break soon so that they can talk. So they waited for to that, the time frame was due. But while they were waiting, Dashie decided why not get to her new main style. So she walked up and asked if it was possible to get to her main cut, and even though she hadn't even arranged a time for doing so, but there were no customers only were like 2 other customers at the time, and so the owner didn't mind to give Dashie the main cut style and all that. So of course the owner asked Dashie what style she was thinking of. So the owner gave her a piece of paper that showed a different style of mane and tail, or at least the mane that she was only focused on. After choosing one, the owner started giving Dashie this main style. Meantime, when she was doing that, Batsy's break was on. So she sat down with the CMC, small talking and laughing, and had a good time. Even though it took maybe a half hour for Dashie to get her mains fix, after that, she was actually very happy. After that, CMC was really very distraught that they had to leave the saloon sooner than expected. But Rarity had told Dashie that Bad Seed will have a day off the next day, and that would give them more time to spend time. But they were only staying in Manhattan only for a couple of days. So they would have at least so much time they could spend with Bad Seed. But after that, Dashie had dropped off the CMC back at the hotel. She decided just to take a walk by herself to relax and get the fresh air. But when she was arrived close by to the park, she started to feel a bit dizzy, and she was looking for somewhere to sit down, but before she could, she immediately passed out on the sidewalk, and suddenly she was rushed immediately to the hospital, but didn't even know that the CMC actually had also left the hotel. They wanted to do some exploring in the area, despite against the words and warning from Rarity and Dashie. But if it wasn't for doing that, they wouldn't even seen Dashie on the ground, passed out. So they immediately called the contact for an ambulance. So Applebloom and Scootaloo accompanied Dashie to the hospital, while Sweetie Belle was the only one left. She chose to run as fast as she could towards this store or this shop. She knew at least now by this point where to go. When she would run in there, Rarity was surprised to see her younger sister alone, and also look very distraught or very serious look. She asked her if something was wrong, and she explained that she passed out. She is still in the hospital. You all had to go there fast. Rarity dropped everything what she was doing. Same thing with Coco, and since there were no customers in this shop at the time, both decided to close it down and went along with Sweetie Belle to the hospital to find what happened to Dashie. As they arrived to the hospital, they learned the true reason why. After they had made some scans, some tests and all that, turns out Dashie has been suffering from a tumor. The tumor was luckily though wasn't any harm to her health, but that was turns out the reason why she had passed out those 2 times so far. So Rarity asked the doctor if there's any other treatment, like to remove this tumor or is some way to treat it. The doctor explained that the tumor was inoperable, meaning that they couldn't remove it. But since it didn't bother doing any harm to Dashie at all. But the doctor explained even though they couldn't remove this tumor, but it was a good treatment for it. So the doctor explained what kind of treatment, and after he explained, they asked if they could see Dashie. The doctor said yes. She was actually awake at the time, so they walked into her room, and Coco, she was very absolutely devastated, especially when at that time, the moment when Sweetie Belle ran in and explained the main reason, and she was really happy to see that Dashie was okay though. And even though that Dashie would have to remain in the hospital for about a few days just to make sure that things went as perfectly fine, CMC had asked the doctor if it was possible for them to be volunteer as workers. And normally the doctor explained that they only hire young ponies, like the Rarity's age. But CMC was still determined to work there voluntarily to look after Dashie. And afterwards, the conversation between Rarity, Coco, and the doctor, he agreed. So during that time, Coco was sitting by her side, and they snuggled, and she said that she will be there every single time, every day that she can to see her. And Dashie said that she very much appreciated it. And for the next several days, the CMC were there to look after Dashie, like giving her some snacks and maybe read some with her, play some games, just to keep her company. At the same time, the thing as for Coco, she also showed up from time to time during her breaks or something. Dashie was very much appreciated that Coco could get to take time enough to spend time with her. After a few days, Dashie was allowed to leave the hospital, but now she had this medicine that she will require to take the rest of her life. But Dashie didn't mind it, as long as she was in perfect health and the tumor wasn't hurting her in any way. That was enough for her. So Coco and Dashie decided to spend enough more time together, and Rarity didn't mind. She decided to head to look after the shop while Coco and Dashie spent the rest of the time when they were in Manhattan together. CMC had also stepped up to offer to help at the shop, and Rarity thanked them for the help. So during those last few days when they're in Manhattan, Dashie and Coco spent a lot more time. But sadly, after a few days, they had to go back home. But Dashie decided to go see Coco a little more often as she could. But as the months went on, the winter arrived in Ponyville and in Camelot. And of course, Dashie and Coco had been seeing each other from time to time, and also the doctor in Manhattan had required that Dashie go to see a colleague of his in Ponyville for a good treatment, or at least for a checkup. Turns out to be Nurse Redheart, Nurse Redheart was not only a nurse, but she was believed one of the best in trained to look after this treatment. And since Dashie had decided to stay in Ponyville for a little bit more longer period of time, like almost living there, she was staying in in Twilight's castle. And she didn't mind at all, because she wanted a lot more time with Rarity, the CMC, and especially Twilight. But when the heart-warming eve was approaching, Dashie had asked by letter if Coco wanted to come over to spend the holiday with her in Ponyville, and Coco didn't hesitate to answer with a yes. And 2 days later, she arrived in Ponyville, and Dashie was very happy, even though this was only something that Dashie had something special in mind and also planned, because on the holiday, on this very much big day, Dashie was both nervous and happy at the same time, because when they were doing their gifts, sharing out these gifts, Dashie even asked Coco if she wanted to marry her. She literally proposed to her, and Coco started crying but said yes. She didn't hesitate. They decided to get married in the summer next year. Dashie had asked CMC to be her bridesmaids, even though they were only like, you can only have like one, but they all said yes. And Rarity had been asked to be Coco's. Twilight was asked to perform the ceremony. They had only a small, close wedding in Camelot. It was a gorgeous wedding. Every pony could see how happy they both were together. They could have been happier more than ever. And especially when Twilight had this big surprise. She had arranged so that both Dashie and Coco can go to Saudi Arabia for honeymoon for about a week. And they had no idea, but they had this a great time. But after both being married for 3 years, Dashie and Coco wanted to start a family of their own. So they asked Twilight if it was possible for her to help them. Since after all, Twilight had helped a few other mares in the past, and she said yes. Dashie decided to be pregnant first. And within the next few months, they also announced that she was expecting a baby girl. And then the day came. They named the daughter Crystal Moon. Crystal Moon was very much like her parents, very kind, very outspoken. Gina had no problems getting new friends, but her childhood dream was that she wanted to be a doctor. After hearing about her mother's condition, that she could have lost her mother even before she was even born, she wanted to be a doctor and also be able to help others in need. And after that, when she was old enough, she applied for a medical school, and she later graduated, finished her studies, and became a doctor. And she started working in Manhattan. And eventually, she did fall in love with an stallion who also works as a doctor, and they actually got married after about 2 years and had 2 daughters. 3 years later, Coco decided that she also wanted to have a baby of her own, and she later had a daughter which they named Fleur Ribbons. She had actually very much inherited her mother in magic and was very talented, but she also got inspired. She wanted to be a fashion designer like her mother, and when she was older, she started working at the same shop as her mother did. And even though she never became a fashion designer, but working in a fashion shop was good enough for her. At some point, she even got married with a stallion who worked as a gardener. They even got married after 3 years of dating, and later have 3 daughters of their own. 4 years later, Coco had another daughter which they named Ruby Hearts. Ruby Hearts was like her mother's, very outgoing, very kind, generous, but unlike the most of her other older sisters, at a very young age, she was very much loved to go to see plays. And it had a spark. She wanted to be an actress when she was growing older. And when she was old enough, she actually applied for an acting school and she got in. After she had finished her acting school's classes and all that, she wished that she could be a famous actress. Even at the beginning, like many other actors, she only get a small role in small plays in Manhattan. But eventually, one day, she was offered the main role in an upcoming play. And of course, it was like a dream that come true. And she accepted the position as a main role or a main character in this play, and it was the best thing. And she loved it. And the audience loved it as well. And she had just now fulfilled her childhood dream to be an actress. And ever since then, she continued to end up in as a small roles in different plays, but also did end up in a bit, sometimes even a big role. Even though she never became a well-known famous actress, but as long as she was doing acting in her hometown, she didn't mind that at all. And at some point, she even married another fellow actors. And they even got married after like 2 years and had 2 daughters of their own. Dashie couldn't have been happier when she started dating Coco Pommel. The same thing as for Coco. Ever since she started being a pen pal with Dashie in the beginning, she could see how kind and generous she were as a pony. Not only but she didn't see her as a princess, no. She saw her as an equal. She didn't mind or even care if she was a princess or a doctor or anything. But to her, she was just happy to have found her true soulmate. Even after all this, there was a lot of things about Dashie that Coco was really happy about. And even Dashie was just happy to have found her true love soulmate and her true love. The same thing I guess goes for Coco. And if there was something for her, she was just happy to have found her true love. And this is how Dashie and Coco Pommel found a true love and a big family together. The end.